All right, thank you, everybody. This is Judge Fellheimer here. We're at the Government Center. Some of us are here, we have our masks, and we're all socially distanced if you're concerned that we're packed in the room. So I thank everybody for attending. I think this is our first full meeting that we've held by Zoom. So I thank everyone that's made the meeting come to be today. Judge Costing and I have talked about this. I'm looking at the meeting where we left off. Despite the pandemic, the executive committee has met by Zoom, I think at least one or two times. The majority of our focus and energy has been on current court operations. It didn't really give us the luxury of exploring little areas of the justice system that we typically do. I'm sure our energy and time has been zapped by the pandemic just like others. But we've had local, state, national meetings regarding all things coronavirus. So without taking up too much time here, the way I see today's meeting going really is a regrouping of sorts. Number one would be to let all of you know where we have been, meaning the criminal justice stakeholders, where we're going, and then resuming the track that we were on with the coordinating council pre-pandemic. So going back in time, you'll remember that our format really lately has been and will be the following. We're going to hear from our justice system and continuing that path. To continue to bring in community organizations to learn what's being done in the community and how we can help them and they can help us. And you'll remember we had Andrew Held, Andre Hersey of the Jewel Foundation, Boys and Girls Clubs coming. We have Mike Jones from Western Avenue. I thank him for attending. You'll hear from him shortly, and others to gain more insight into what is the problems are in facing the community, what those folks are doing to help and what we can do to help. So it doesn't just help us, but it also helps those groups get some public spotlight for their respective causes. So that will be a continued mainstay of the coordinating council. And then equally as important, we will have our continued collaboration with Dr. Beck and Illinois State University. You're going to hear from him shortly. As you know, he and his students provide invaluable services to us. You'll recall that the jail population was really the genesis for starting the council. That will be a permanent agenda item no matter what. He's also, as you recall, right before the pandemic hit, tackling the very difficult and intricate data of the juvenile justice system in McLean County and trying to put that together to help us identify the gun-related violence and where the missing link is. So that's an exciting area. And then Judge Costigan and Will and I met with Dr. Beck last Friday, and we're talking about other items that we're going to bring before the executive committee to tackle for he and the ISU students. So that's kind of regrouping back to where we are. Today you're going to hear from many others. And I don't want to bore you with all the meetings and decisions and tough decisions and planning that my office has had to take since the pandemic hit. So I want others to talk rather than myself. The other important item that I wanted to bring to the council's attention is that the executive board discussed at our last meeting about 4 or 5 weeks ago what to do after the tragic event in Minnesota that unfolded and what the council's role would be locally in lending an ear to listening to problems that are around us as I speak. So the council was unanimous in that we should lend an ear to multiple groups and how to do that. So I have reached out to several of the groups, Linda Foster with NAACP and some other groups. Personally, I spoke with them and extended an invitation to have some small roundtable discussions with them, with others, not just myself, to see what, if anything, we could assist on with all the individuals that we have around our table. So that's something I look forward to. I should tell you too, though, I explained as explicitly as I could what the council does and what the council doesn't do, and that we don't control any of the members of the coordinating council, that we are a collaboration of sorts, but that it would be a great missed opportunity if we didn't at least sit down with all the people we have as part of this group to listen to concerns and opportunities maybe that we can learn from. So that's something that we're attempting. Will has been in contact with these groups, and I think, Will, we're waiting to hear back on available dates and putting that together. So that's something I think that would be a good idea. So that's kind of where we're going forward at this point in time. I'm going to now ask, I've got a couple people that are going to say a couple things, because I have to stop myself a lot, because at our chief judges meetings, we assume everyone's privy to the same information we get regarding court operations, and that's just not so. And we even have it with our local judges, that we sometimes, those of us that are involved in this 24/7, assume every judge has the same level of information we have, and that's just not true. So I've asked Judge Costigan, who's the presiding judge of the criminal division, to just give a brief update on how things are going from the criminal side of the local court system. And then if Don Knapp's on, or somebody from his office, the state's attorney's office, they have a jury that's deliberating, so he wasn't sure if he was going to make it or not. The state's attorney will give a brief update. I've asked Carla Barnes, our public defender, also to give a brief update regarding her office. Mike Donovan should be on the line. I tried to reach him earlier. And then if any of the police agencies and Sheriff Sandage, you can have the floor too if you want to update us just regarding the ongoings of your department. So without further ado, we'll turn it over to Judge Costigan, and then we will get to our presentation by Mike Jones. And I should say that Western Avenue, we'll turn it over to him after we get through these speakers. That's where Mike Jones is from.
Thank you. Well, hello, everybody. It's good to be back, so to speak. I just wanted to give an update on where things are at with the criminal division. I know this is going to be repetitive for a number of people in the meeting, but some have more knowledge than others. First of all, going back when things all happened, the first thing that we did is we had to stop court operations for the most part. And so what we did is this: all misdemeanors, all traffic cases, all major traffic cases immediately went to Zoom hearings, and the judges conducted the hearings via Zoom. We wanted to make sure that the jail was protected, and Sheriff Sandage was very proactive in that. And so one of the things that we did is all the periodic confinements, weekend reportings went on hold, and they are still on hold at this point in time. We continue to work with the sheriff in terms of when the best time is to go ahead and reinstitute those folks coming back to serve the remainder of their sentences. All the felony cases that were in custody, we went ahead, courtroom 3E is video equipped, so we could handle hearings from 3E via video down to the jail. And we handled all in custody hearings via video for the felony dockets. The other felony cases that were out of custody, we went ahead and moved those down the road because they did have a right to be in-person hearings. And so those were continued out. And then about a month and a half, 2 months ago, we started all in-person hearings again. And so at this point in time, we do have in-person hearings at the courthouse for the criminal dockets. We have limited the number of people who come in per hour. We do socially distance when they do come in. We have folks wait out in the hall until their case is called, and we do have markings in the hall to where they wait before they come into the courtroom. So far, it has worked fairly well. We do have occasional days to where things do get crowded and do create a bit of a problem, but for the most part, it is working very well. Speedy trial was a big issue for the criminal division, and the Supreme Court, after some back and forth, did give the judges the authority to go ahead and toll speedy trial on motions based upon courtroom capacity and based upon our ability to go ahead and have trials. despite having that authority to go ahead and toll speedy trials, there has been very few instances to where we have had to do so. Month and a half ago in June, we started back with our jury trials. We set up 2 courtrooms to have jury trials in. Judge Strzeski's courtroom was big enough to go ahead and socially distance our jurors, as well as have capacity for the public to come in and view the trial. And we also set up our jury assembly room in terms of a courtroom to where jurors could socially distance, and we would also have the capacity for the public to view the trial as well. The jurors use an actual courtroom for their deliberation room. We go ahead and block that off for their room, and so they can socially distance while they are in deliberations. So far, we have had 5 trials take place in the last 2 months. Everybody who has requested speedy trial has received a speedy trial within the last 2 months. Several of those cases have been significant trials. We've had 4 murder trials in the last 2 months, and the other one was a home invasion case. And things have gone very well in that regard so far. Every juror who has come in, we have a process to where they come in, to where they can socially distance when they come in, so we're not putting them all together when they do come in. And every juror, I have not had one at this point in time who has indicated that they're unwilling to serve because of the pandemic. And we did have the Department of Health in to come over and look at our setups that we did have. And they gave us the okay that we were doing things in the right way to be able to maintain the jury trials and go forward with the jury trials. So in the immediate future, we do plan to continue with 2 courtrooms running. We do have a number of significant cases scheduled for August as well that will take place. But again, everybody who has demanded speedy trial is getting it at this point. And as a matter of fact, the second week of the jury calendar for this month, we were looking for a trial to go. We went down to the misdemeanors, to the traffic divisions, and we could not find a second trial to actually go in this courtroom that we had open. So things are progressing in the right direction. It has been challenging, but it is working out at this point. So I'll be glad to take any questions, but that's a general overview as to where we've been. Okay, thank you. I'm not sure who goes next, Mark.
I'll just call him over there. And I should say, as far as jury trials are concerned, Judge Costigan said the Supreme Court of Illinois did give us some breathing room on speedy trials. So some may say, why not just put all the trials off? There's currently some challenges in federal court to what the Supreme Court did, which means those cases, and we're talking murder cases that have speedy trial issues, while we can rely upon the Supreme Court, if the federal court determines that what the Supreme Court of Illinois did is unconstitutional, those cases are in jeopardy. So it was a balancing act that we had to undertake. I should also say, before I ask from the state and others, the true value of the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council came out at the beginning and throughout the pandemic. The March 14th, I think it was a Saturday, we had to call an emergency meeting, and this core group, it wasn't CJCC related, but it was Don Knapp. It was the presiding judge on behalf of the county in his role as the county attorney. The presiding judges from McLean County, myself, Will Scanlon, and then the 4 non-McLean resident circuit judges, along with Sheriff Sandage. We met on a fateful Saturday for most of the day, dealing with the immediate concerns. We then were meeting 1 to 2 times per week thereafter. Then we backed it off as things have gone on, and we call meetings on a moment's notice. So despite the full board council not meeting, the fact that we had these pieces in place without ever thinking that we would actually be facing a pandemic, the true value came out because we all had working relationships with one another, that the phones picked up and a meeting's held within we literally I called a meeting at 8 o'clock on a Friday night, and they were all here Saturday by, I think, 10 a.m. And we spent the entire day crafting what we were going to do the following Monday or Tuesday. So as I said, since I took over as chief judge, not only are the individual issues that we tackle important, but it's the relationships we all have, even though we're come from separate organizations and entities. The value of those relationships has made my job easier in terms of navigating through these uncharted waters. So I'll plug that for the CJCC. Is anybody on the line from the state's attorney's office?
I am, Your Honor. This is Mary Cole.
Did you have anything you wanted to add regarding the just how your office is operating for the benefit of everyone as part of this meeting?
Yeah, I have just a couple things I'll mention. For the most part, we are back to normal right now. The biggest thing that has happened development-wise as far as getting back to normal in the last couple weeks is that the grand jury has resumed. I think this week was the third week, I believe, since they came back. So we are really happy about that because just as far as workflow, that makes things move a little smoother and results in less courtroom time because we're not having to do preliminary hearings. That is also going to result in a surge of felony cases because there are a lot of files we've been sitting on awaiting the return of the grand jury, including upgrades. So for example, a lot of DUIs that we were waiting for the grand jury to get back to upgrade those to felonies. So there is going to be a pretty significant surge here over the next few weeks in felony cases. Internally, the main thing that we have seen as far as an increase in criminal activity over the last 3 or 4 months is domestic violence. A lot of types of crime decreased during the shutdown, but domestic violence offenses increased, and we are continuing to see a strong flow of domestic violence arrests. And I think that makes sense given that there is increased social isolation and increased pressures at home, and increased alcohol use is definitely contributing to that too. So we're still dealing with that increase in domestic violence and physical child abuse cases along with that. But other than that, with getting back to normal with the grand jury, we are pretty much back to where we were before the shutdown.
All right. Thank you. And I should say, as far as the court system, while we're moving forward, it's with caution. I've got a limit on each courtroom in McLean County that they can only have up to 10 cases per hour. And that was in consultation with Sheriff Sandage to make sure that not only are we keeping the courtroom safe, but how many people that the building itself, the Law and Justice Center, can safely process through at any given time. So our capacity number is a different number than what the building can safely handle. So we're monitoring, obviously, as everyone else is, on a day-to-day basis. So I don't want to give the illusion that we've just basically gone back to exactly how it was. We're still operating, but we're operating with the health department's advice along with the sheriff's advice as far as how he thinks the building should be handled. Carla, from the Public Defender's Office, did you want to provide an update on your office?
Yes, I do. You all know that traditionally we've had a lot of foot traffic in and out of our office because we serve all of the indigent clients in McLean County. But because of the pandemic, I had to try to limit the contact of that foot traffic without denying anyone of any services. So we moved to appointment only to review your discovery. Before the pandemic, clients would just come in throughout the day and we would provide an area for them to sit and review their discovery, give them pen and paper so they can take notes, and that was even without an office appointment. So now those are still being done, but they have to schedule an appointment a week in advance, and only one person is allowed into my office for that purpose. So they can't bring family members to sit in the lobby because we've limited it, the number of seating in my lobby as well. They also have to make office appointments to speak to the attorneys, and again, only one person, the client, can come in. So they're not allowed to bring their family members in because we're trying to keep everyone safe. The health department was great about making sure that I have probably in excess of 50 masks because a lot of our clients would come in, they weren't allowed in the building because they didn't have any face masks. So the health department makes sure that my office was provided with ample of those, and they've extended the offer that if I ever need more, to go ahead and give them a call. They've also given me a no-touch thermometer that I can use, although the sheriff's office is excellent about taking everyone's temperature when they come into the building. I don't have very many attorneys that cannot work from home, so I'm still allowing that a great deal of time. I've had an attorney that was sick in years prior, so I try to let him utilize his laptop, log on from home, and do some work from home so that he's not in having much contact with people. But I mean, we're making sure that everyone stays safe, and we're still providing all of the services that we need to for our citizens. So I'll be glad to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Any questions for Mary or Carla? No? Clerk Everhart from the Circuit Clerk's Office, you want to provide just a brief update for everybody?
We're back to full service for the public. We did have markings out in the halls and to the different floors to provide social distancing. We did install plastic shields on the 4th floor in the civil division, but we're back to full service.
All right. And then Mike Donovan, Director of Court Services, anything you want to tell anyone about your office right now?
Yes, thank you, sir. We are back in business too. All staff are back in the building. We had a number of staff that were working from home and doing things remotely, but everybody is back here. We've resumed seeing clients. We started with the highest risk clients. We're not up to 100% by AOAC standards with contact standards, but we are close. And we're doing community. We're back out in the community doing contacts that are modified with distancing and stuff. But we're back in business.
All right. And I think, speaking on behalf of all of us, we're ready and prepared to make changes should we have to go backwards. So we've not thrown, as I said, caution to the wind. So if we have to make a change tomorrow, we're in a good position now, I think, nimble enough that we can change course if we have to. If I can turn to Sheriff Sandage, and I think we have Chief Bleichner, I think Dan Donath is on. I'm not sure if Aaron Woodruff is on, but all of you can, if you want to have a couple minutes to just update us regarding your department's ongoings. I think in light of what we've been through, that's the least we can do. So Sheriff Sandage, if you want to go first.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to thank Judge Fellheimer and Judge Koskin for their leadership on this. We all work together very nicely, and as different as it is, I think it's running as smooth as possible. For our department, the biggest issue right now, of course, suspending the sentences of work release and weekenders helped a lot with our jail population, gave us the ability to quarantine new inmates coming in. And to date, we have not had any cases of COVID in the jail, which we feel very fortunate of. I know Peoria County is currently dealing with about 21 cases in their jail. One of the main issues we have, though, is on March 26th, the Illinois Department of Corrections quit accepting inmates from county jails that had been sentenced to the Department of Corrections. Right now, we have 39 inmates that are either been sentenced to the Department of Corrections or are here on parole warrants and need to be picked up by the Department of Corrections. With that many inmates, it's starting to give us some space issues as far as being able to segregate and quarantine. So we are currently in litigation with the Illinois Sheriff's Association against Governor Pritzker and the Illinois Department of Corrections for them to start accepting our inmates so we can free up some space and get back to normal operations. But other than that, we are doing well. We purchased a temperature scanner to put a screening in the Law and Justice Center, so everyone coming through has their temperature taken. And all the precautions that we have taken, I think, have definitely paid dividends so far.
Any questions for Sheriff Sandage? Chief Bleichner, did you want to provide an update regarding normal PD?
Yeah, sure. No, I appreciate that. I just would echo what Sheriff Sandage has said about not only the leadership, but really the communication. I mean, I think obviously when this first came out, the pandemic really broke. We were all scrambling, but I think countywide there was a great deal of communication on all levels that helped get the information to us, get it to our staff in a timely manner that helped quell a lot of concerns there. So that was great. Our supervisors and staff are doing well at this point. They've done great modifying operations. Most of our operations are back to kind of the new normal, if you will. I mean, we're not back to where we were previously on some of the things. We're just conducting business a little differently, but our facilities have all, been open for some time. When it comes to most of our reported crimes, we've seen decreases in most of the areas, with a few increases in obviously the mental health calls, suicidal and attempts for suicide calls have been up, along with, as Mary had mentioned, the domestic violence related cases are up. On the flip side, we've seen some decreases in quite a few categories too. Some of the serious categories, the burglaries are down, sexual assaults are down considerably, thefts, but then also on the other side of it are some of our proactive approaches on traffic enforcement. That's down considerably, but also our traffic crashes are down, I think about 61% compared to about this time last year. So right now, moving forward is just trying to plan for the return of students, both at ISU, what that will look like with their blended learning. Also, we know that the university is going to have fewer activities as far as after-hour activities, so we're trying to do some planning on what that's going to look like, or because the impromptu gatherings and parties and things like that may pop up. We're just kind of wrapping our arms around the best way to deal with that. And then with Unit 5 and the students coming back potentially in the fall, how that's going to look. I will say in relation to Unit 5, our school resource officers worked in unison with Unit 5 there, especially at the end of the year. I think they went March 13th was when schools decided to close down and go to a distance learning model. Our SROs worked with the school administrators to identify kids that had not checked in or who they had considered to be at risk. And so our school resource officers worked with them and did outreach to those families to make sure that the students were okay, they were getting the information that they needed, that they were safe. And so I just thought I would mention that, because in light of a lot of the defund the police and a lot of the things that come out on the negative side about school resource officers, they're doing a lot of tremendous things here in McLean County, not just normal. But I mentioned that, and then on an operations standpoint, I shared a little information with Clerk Everhart. We have, and Judge Fellheimer, you're aware, have been in the process. We identified a company for our e-citation program, our electronic citation program. We've been working through the build on that. It's about 95% done right now. There's a few tweaks to be made to it, but we are doing on-site training with our staff remotely with the vendor this week. And our hope is that we will have that in a pilot setting with 5 vehicles and 5 dedicated officers to work through that starting August 1st. So I think that is about all the updates I got for us. Thank you.
Any questions for Chief Bleichner? And Chief Donath?
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor, and welcome everybody, or good afternoon. Yeah, we've been very fortunate through the COVID thing. We have had 0 officers test positive for COVID. So we feel very good about that and all the protocols that the city manager and we put in place here. Communication from the Sheriff Sandage and Don Knapp's office, the state attorney's office, has been great to keep us updated on all the changes in the court system. Biggest things for us is, the domestics are up 30%, including physical domestics. And we're waiting on NPD's e-citation trial to see how it goes, and then we'll go from there. But we've got some interest in pursuing that too. Outside of that, we've been plugging away and continue to serve the citizens and answer all our calls, and we're getting there. So thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Chief Donath? I'm not sure, is Chief Woodruff on the line? All right. I think I've covered everybody. Is anybody in the room? Will, Camille, anything from the county standpoint? She's giving me a thumbs up. She's okay. It's kind of, we would laugh a little bit. It's kind of like the movie Groundhog Day. We wake up and it seems like we're repeating ourselves day after day after day, but we're persistent. We're not going to quit until this is over. So if you want a good laugh, watch it again tonight. It still makes me laugh. All right, let's get to our, and we'll have time at the end if someone has something else they wish to add. We have Mike Jones from Western Avenue Community Center, who's joins us via video. I want to welcome Mr. Jones. As I said earlier, we have continued for the last at least probably a year to 18 months to bring in groups for reasons I stated earlier. Western Avenue does hold a special place in my heart. I was good friends with Greg Patton, who was very involved at Western Avenue, and he was a close friend of mine, and we attended the Pontiac Holiday Tournament almost every year together. So think about Mike and his booming voice from the bench coaching VHS basketball team. So I wish Mr. Jones was in person so I could speak with him personally, but we can't do that today. So Mr. Jones, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you, Judge. And good afternoon, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity to share some information about Western Avenue. And Greg Patton was a good friend of mine as well. I've known Greg for many, many years, and that was a great loss to the community. What I would like to do this afternoon is really cover three areas. I'd like to give you a brief history of Western Avenue, because I find as I navigate through the community, when I mention Western Avenue, sometimes I get a blank look on people's face. So I'm gonna give you just a real quick overview of our history. I'll do a high-level overview of our current program offerings and what we have under development. And I'd like to close with why Western Avenue is personally important to me and for the community. As we go through this, if it's okay with you, I'll pause after each one of those areas and offer you the chance to ask questions. If not, we'll just keep moving along. I do believe William Scanlon was able to send you a slide. I don't know if you all have it or not, but you don't need it. But if you do, we'll follow that slide. A little bit of history about Western Avenue. It was founded in 1926 by the Reverend Frank Breen of Second Presbyterian Church. And now for 94 years, we have served the community from the same corner here at Locust and Western Avenue. The center then, as it is now, focused on families and youth. And so a little bit more history. If you think back around 1926 in Bloomington, here on the west side, the rail yards were one of the biggest employers in town. And when Western Avenue was founded, it was meant to be a complement to the YMCA in terms of serving families and individuals. And really that was our start. There was a immigrant community then in Bloomington Normal. A lot of those that worked at the rail yards were immigrants. And we will find today as we have this conversation that as time has passed, Western Avenue continues to serve the immigrant community. In 1982, the center was destroyed by fire and it was rebuilt in 1983. We currently operate with 4 full-time, 6 part-time employees, 3 volunteers, and we have a 12-member board of directors engaged in oversight and fundraising activities. Our budget for fiscal year 2021, which is July 1st through June 30th of 2021, is $357,000, and that number has shrunk from several years past from around $625,000, about a 57% reduction. Much of that reduction came from moving the Lawrence Irving Neighborhood Center from under Western Avenue to the Boys and Girls Club. The biggest driver for that move several years ago was concern over future funding as we saw our revenue decreasing. For many years, our funding came from Second Presbyterian Church, State Farm Insurance, United Way, and individual donations. Today, our funding comes primarily from Second Presbyterian and individual donations. So that was a real quick high-level overview of where we are here on the corner of Western Avenue and Locust. I'm gonna stop there and see if there's any questions on our history. If not, I'm gonna keep moving. I'm gonna talk about our programs, what we have underway, and some of the things that we have under development. If you do have the slide, if you don't, I'm gonna just talk about our Hispanic outreach and counseling services programs, where we interact with, on an annual basis, about 1,000 families and individuals. And if you think about it, it's more of a case management opportunity for us to help individuals and families with applications, with visas, with work applications, and coordinating other services that they may need that we don't offer out of Western Avenue. And we also provide some family and individual counseling as well. Many of you are familiar probably with our interpretation and translation services program. Primarily, we support the courts, medical providers, and schools. And we've been called outside the county on numerous occasions to support court systems in Pontiac or even Peoria, Champaign, and Springfield because of the services we offer with interpretation. One of the biggest challenges with that, though, that is a break-even program for us. We get reimbursed, but it's a cash flow challenge because many times the reimbursements come much after the event has taken place. We have senior programs that we feel really good about in helping our seniors stay active. A variety of activities for them. They love bingo. They love their exercising, workout sessions. Our dinner dances for them a couple of times a year sometimes generate at least 50 seniors. However, due to COVID-19, we have not been able to have our seniors in the building since March. And we're working with them now to try to figure out how to get them back and engaged with what they like to do. We are re-engaging our youth programs. As I mentioned, the Link Center moved to the Boys and Girls Club, and that left a huge void for us here at Western Avenue in terms of our youth programming. We're starting back up. We have a startup basketball league, an open gym, and a newly formed basketball skill development classes are being held as well. I will say that you may have heard this term before, but we use basketball as a hook. The hook is to get the kids in, and eventually we're going to get them into some life skill discussions and training, and that has seemed to work well, particularly when we had Link under our purview. We have a martial arts program that has been active actually since 2014, and this summer we started a co-ed teen club. Our intent was to start with about 20 kids. We've had about 30 kids every Wednesday and Thursday evening from 5 to 8 o'clock. And back to the martial arts program, I don't think Chief Woodruff was on the phone, but Jeremy Butler, I believe a former ISU police officer, has run that program for us. He has now left the community, but he still runs it with a volunteer that he has. So we're grateful to have him, and that program is very well received. To the right, if you have the slide, you'll see Heartland College and some activity we have with them. Heartland's been a great partner for us, particularly with the English as a second language instruction for many years. And next week, July 27th through the 31st, we will host our first Girls Empowerment Program sponsored by Heartland. And it's a program, it's a pilot for us that we want to and hope to continue into the school year. Heartland's president, Keith Cornell, has recently had some conversations about work-ready programs, and we're going to engage a little bit more there. The COVID-19 has slowed those discussions down, and what we find that we can do here out of Western Avenue or what we may have to do remotely as well, working with Heartland. So again, a great partner for us and a great service to the community, particularly with the English as a second language. We also have an emergency food program running out of Western Avenue, and that is in with partnership with Mid Central Community Action, where we have a $10,000 grant. And the difference with this grant and what people are exposed to in terms of food pantries, based on need, we will invite clients in to sit down, go online, create a grocery list. We use Walmart, and we'll determine based on their need how much groceries we can provide them, and they will purchase their own groceries. It's a little bit different than going to a food pantry and being handed a box or a bag of goods, and some of them you may need, some of them you may not need, and that's certainly not a downplay of our food pantries, because they're very important. But this does offer our clients some autonomy in purchasing their food items. And just last week, I want to mention, in terms of closing up where we are with development potentially of future programming, I met with Suzanne Montoya and Kevin Jones to learn about restorative practices. I knew nothing about restorative practices going into that meeting, and I still know very little today. But what we've agreed to is, and I'm arranging, they're going to come visit one of our board of director meetings and give us a complete overview of the restorative practices discipline and how might Western Avenue become I'll say community hub in terms of that practice. So a lot to learn. Don't know yet whether we can play in that space, but if we can, we certainly will. So I'm gonna pause there in terms of programming. That's some of the programming that's happening here out of Western Avenue. We were closed from March 18th through June 8th. We are accepting clients by appointment only right now. So I'll stop there and see if there are any questions. Okay, if not, so I'm gonna move into just a little something about me and move to a close, and maybe there will be some questions. About me, I grew up on the west side of Bloomington and attended the center probably from about age 7, growing up here on the west side. It was then, as it is today, a safe place for kids for recreational activities and personal interaction development. I learned through guidance, coaching, and interactions from adult leaders that I came in contact with at the center that if I focused on school, stayed out of trouble, I could accomplish anything I choose to and become a productive citizen. Let's put that in some context. That was in the 1960s. I'm gonna date myself here a little bit. As a young African American, you did not generally receive encouragement to look beyond where you currently were, nor did you see many people who looked like you or were in a successful position or situation. That's the reality of the time that I grew up in. And as I reflect back, Western Avenue really was a huge guidepost for me in my personal development. After high school graduation, I attended college and later worked for State Farm Insurance, where after 43 years, I held multiple vice president roles with the company. And I consider myself lucky, as there were several people on my journey who saw something in me that I probably didn't see in myself and encouraged me to move out of my comfort zone. So I've been on the board for about 12, 14 years now. I lose track of time, and I'm currently in the role as board president. And it's my goal to help foster as many success stories that are coming out of Western Avenue. And we've had a few over the years, but we need to see more. And certainly with the things that are going on in the communities now, the pandemic, the social unrest that we're seeing, I think we have an opportunity to continue to make a difference. So I'm gonna close by saying the past several years have been rocky for Western Avenue in terms of finances and leadership. As board president and as board member, I have found myself here almost on a daily basis, helping keep the wheels on the wagon, so to speak. Our finances have gone down, as I mentioned. Our two primary financiers now are Second Presbyterian and donations. And we are currently operating without a executive director. Our executive director that we have now is a volunteer. She's been here in previous years in that role, and she graciously came back to help us out during this time. This past October, we came awfully close to closing the doors here at Western Avenue. And if not for the generous and outstanding support from the community, we just wouldn't be here right now. I wouldn't be having this conversation and talking about what I like to call the jewel of the West Side here at Western Avenue. We are positioned right now because of that generosity for our fiscal year, July 1 to June 30th, 2021, to meet our financial obligations. And we are currently, as I said, operating without an executive director, but need to start thinking about getting someone in place to assume that position. We are in the process of getting a newsletter out. We haven't had one in a while. And I would like to get that in everyone on this council's hands. I think we have a good story to tell. And if I could maybe work with William Scanlon after this meeting, we'll get that newsletter in his hands and maybe he could distribute that amongst the council. So that's a real quick high-level overview of what's going on here at Western Avenue. I can't tell you how pleased I am with our teen program that's just getting started. The kids are coming in. They've been cooped up for several months. It's a co-ed program, so we've got programs for the girls. The boys, as I said, they're playing basketball. That's what they love to do, and that's what we're letting them do. But eventually, we're going to set them down and have some serious discussions about life skills and where they're headed in their journey. So with that, I'll leave it for questions.
No questions?
Any questions?
Dan Donuts here. I don't necessarily have a question. I just wanted to thank you for all your service and all your work that you're doing. It's very important stuff. You know, a lot of kids, you know, grow up and don't have a lot of opportunities. And, you know, by all your work and all your time spent and energy and effort and resources, you're giving kids an opportunity to have a successful life. And that's very important to me and our community. So I just tell you, thank you.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate those comments. Thanks.
All right, and I would, Mr. Mike, you've got an open invitation to come to any of our meetings once we're through the remote hearing, so we welcome you at any time for that. And number two, please get us whatever information you want through Will Scanlon, and we can distribute that to our entire group on a regular basis for you.
Thank you, Judge. I appreciate it. And again, I really appreciate the opportunity today to come talk about Western Avenue. Thank you.
The other groups too have come and they want to, you know, come back again. So you're welcome to come back and we'll get you in here as many times as you want.
I'd love to do that. Thanks a lot.
This is Carla.
Yes.
Mike, do you have any immediate needs that we may be able to address?
Well, right now, Carla, we are, as I mentioned, we're getting the teen club up and running, and we will be looking for volunteers to come in and speak to the kids about some of their life experiences and things that they can share, that, again, to keep them on the right path. It's interesting. When we talk to our girls, we ask them what would they like to interact with or learn about. Well, one of them was tie-dye. So my wife came in and did a tie-dye class for the girls a couple of weeks ago. But one of the young ladies surprised me and said she wanted to learn about investing. And
oh, wow.
I was, yeah. So we'll be looking for someone or people to come in at the professional level that can share, again, some positive experience with the kids once we start that life skill training. So we'll be in touch and we'll be seeking assistance from the community to help us with that.
All right, thank you.
And lastly, when I get my newsletter out, you're going to see it. Finances. If you can make a donation, I'd be remiss not to ask for it. We'd love to have it. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, and if you get us that information, then we can get it to everybody here, which will save you some time and headaches. So.
Yeah, it certainly will.
All right. All right, next I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Beck. He always provides extremely insightful information for us, so I look forward every month to hearing Dr. Beck explain the numbers, give the rest of us a headache.
So good afternoon. Thank you, Judge and the CJCC. So the charge has been recently to look at data from the Juvenile Detention Center and to begin to make connections in the data between persons who were in the Juvenile Detention Center and were in the jail at some point as adults. And so we've been playing with the juvenile data. I can tell you that it's a little cumbersome, but we're having fun doing it. So in terms of just some initial information, go to this next slide, please. So you'll see that we have data from 2009, and we have it currently through June of 2019, but we can update that. And you'll see that you've been hanging in the 300 numbers that are coming through the JDC each year. But then in 2017 and 2018, it dropped down to below 300, and looked like for 2019 that's where you're going to stay. So numbers are down a little bit, which I would think is good news. With respect to age, no surprise, 15, 16, and 17 years old comprises 75% of the persons who come through. And there's a few people on the tail ends of that for different reasons. Next slide, please. Sorry, just a moment.
Yeah, just one slide.
No worries.
Attention to
There we go. So with respect to,
Is that what you're looking for?
no, I was looking for the, there we go. So that slide there, what you're seeing is a county distribution. It's no surprise that the numbers are highest for McLean, but then for the other counties that are in the circuit that are adjacent to us in some way or directly in the circuit, there's some things that need to be cleaned up. So for instance, you'll see DJJ has 5 persons and IDJJ has 10. That's likely the same thing. And then intrastate versus interstate and where those should be lumped, I'm not quite sure. But overall, 3,329 persons. With respect to sex distribution, no surprise, overwhelmingly male, 81%. With respect to race, the majority being white, but a disproportionate amount African American, followed by Hispanic. Can you jump to the next slide? There we go. Lastly, offense category. So this is in parentheses, but emphasized preliminary, I would say, is important. So we used our knowledge of different charging to categorize things. By our, I mean Alexis and I in the Stevenson Center. We feel like we need input to make sure we've done this right. And so I'm in conversations with Mike Donovan to make sure that we're doing this right. And you'll see detention is 1,100 persons, administrative related is another 1,000 out of the 3,300. But then you have theft related and then you're into weapons. You're into firearm offenses, you're into weapon offenses, and then drug and I'm not quite sure what conduct related means, but we'll figure it out. So this is our first look at JDC data, and just to let you know that we haven't stopped working, and we will pick up there and be happy to share more as we go forward. and I'm happy to answer questions.
No questions? All right, Will Scanlon's going to give a brief or give an update on the Justice Information Systems project.
I'm sorry? Camera's frozen. Oh, yeah, our camera's frozen, so if you can hear me, I'll just be a minute. And then you can see me. Just for those of you who were not following what occurred at the executive committee of the county board and at the county board meeting, the Justice Information System for the county is still undergoing a review. At this stage, we have received a report from MTG Consulting regarding our current system. Am I muted?
No, you're fine.
Oh, okay. Okay. The consultant will be issuing a request for information. What we need to do, one of our next steps is to proceed an evaluation of the market environment in which we're going to purchase these various software systems, a case management system, a records management system for law enforcement agency, a jail management system, the system, document management system, and the system to tie them all together, the data exchange program. In what order, in what priority, and how much each is going to cost, those are still unanswered questions. So we are taking the initial step to get a request for information to help answer those questions. That's going to take about 90 days. That was just approved by the county board on Tuesday. So we're in the initial stages of writing the request for information, and hopefully it will be out in 2 to 3 more weeks, mid-August at the latest, and we'll have the opportunity to have that information back to the county by the end of October, mid to the end of October, and begin the evaluation process. So that's where the Justice Information Systems project lies. It's moving slowly from a lot of people's standpoint, but really, once we get the information, do the evaluation, then I think things are going to start moving rather quickly. And so I'll take any questions anyone might have. Craig Nelson's in the room if people have technical questions.
You may want to let him know. Because we collecting statistics.
Okay. Well, Craig's letting me know we're also going to be asking various departments for some statistical information as part of the RFI process. So you can anticipate that you will be getting inquiry about a number of statistics regarding some of your operations, and we'd appreciate if you give those your attention. Before we move to other, I know I left off one thing from the agenda. That's the Behavioral Health Coordinating Council. Just an update from Ms. Malott, if she's available to give such an update. I did not intend to leave her off the agenda, but yet here we are. So I would ask Ms. Malott if she's able to give us a brief update on the status of the Behavioral Health Coordinating Council.
Yeah, so the BHCC did not meet in June due to COVID and virtual meetings. We elected to cancel that meeting and we'll resume meeting in September. At present time, Triage and Fuse are both open and operational. Fuse has had some changes to how it's operating, given the mix of staff being some county, some Chestnut, and an employment specialist with Bridgeway. And so we also have 3 employer sets of guidelines kind of dictating where staff can and cannot work from. But we maintain contact with all of our clients on a daily basis and do as much face-to-face as we can still. Triage is currently open 24 hours, 5 days per week. So we open on Thursday mornings at 6 a.m. and remain open until Tuesday mornings at 6 a.m. And that remains a facility for people over the age of 18 to walk in with a behavioral health crisis, or can be brought by law enforcement as a diversion option from the justice system when they need an in-the-moment intervention, but they're not at risk of harm to themselves or others. Other initiatives, we, especially relative to CJCC, back in December, we completed phase 2 of a pilot project with NYU to develop a tool for law enforcement to use in the field that will help them better determine what to do when they interact with an individual experiencing mental health concerns, substance use, or homelessness. And phase 2 actually had even better results than they anticipated, and there was a higher and stronger correlation between the data than they had really expected, which is all really good news. And so they're working on what phase 3 will look like. And for those who didn't know, it is us and then Indianapolis, which is Marion County in Indiana, are the 2 testing sites. And so we're working with them on phase 3, which will be actual testing in the field with officers utilizing the tool. And then assuming that phase 3 goes well, that should actually be the last phase of their testing to where it would then become publicly accessible. So I look forward to what that will be like too. I think it could be a great asset to us also.
I have a question, and I guess maybe it's because of what you brought up, Tricia, but I think I'd like to ask the chiefs, Chief Fleischner and Chief Donat, about the triage reception with the officers and how the officers have felt about it for the ones that have taken someone there.
Hey, Dan Donut here. I haven't received direct feedback from the officers that have taken somebody there. I could certainly reach out and ask for that feedback, but nobody on their own has reached out to me and shared an experience with me one way or the other.
And I would say I have my report is pretty similar to that. I mean, I've talked with supervisors who made that information aware to their staff. I mean, we built that in one of our training bulletins. Tricia did a great job coming to and providing some updated information to our supervisory group. So there's awareness out there. I just do not have an idea of the number of people that we have actually taken to triage. And so that's something I could certainly follow up on. To me, though, it seems to be a great resource for us and alternatives, better patient care, better services. So, but again, I can circle back around with staff and get some more details.
Any other questions for Ms. Millott? Okay, I'll turn it back over to Judge Mark Fellheimer. I believe he'll ask if anyone else has anything. So if you would have anything, please indicate so, or unmute yourself so you're ready. Thank you.
All right, we'll let you get back to your days here in just a minute. So if anyone has questions or you want to be heard on some other issue that you want addressed, if we can't address it now, we can get you an answer. So anybody have anything else?
Hi, this is Amanda from Loyola. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, I just wanted to let you know that we are polishing up an update to the Trends and Issues report. I believe the last one we had was in summer 2018. So sometime in the next month, you can expect a draft to review, and we'll get that to you as soon as possible.
Great. Thank you. And you know who to send it to?
You know what? I know that Dave does. My apologies.
Anyone else have anything for the meeting today? Nope. All right, our next meeting, Will advises me, is October 22nd. We will plan as of now to be remote. We'll have the remote option, I assume, regardless of where we stand. If we can, if people can come in person, if circumstances allow that, that's fine. But regardless of that, you can make arrangements that you will be able to attend remote. And we may continue that for the foreseeable future, regardless of the pandemic, if it allows more people to participate. So with hearing nothing else, that'll conclude the meeting for today. Thank you, everybody.